Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, in order to get my speech moving, I'd like to ask Craig to come up and help me.
Hello, Todd. Thanks for coming in for the interview today. Why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a strategy executive, and I like to work in online video, and I like to work in large companies.
Well, that is a bit of a problem because, you know, we are a startup digital marketing company.
Oh, well, got a little hot under the collar there, didn't I? Got a little sweaty. It's pretty normal to get nervous when you're speaking. When I get nervous when I speak, I tend to sweat. And I do tend to sweat this heavily. Now, it can be controlled. It's very normal. It's what's called the fight or flight syndrome. And it's an automatic nervous system response to stress. Now, you can try to control it through prescription drugs, but these are habit-forming and expensive, so we'll try to stay away from those. You can also try to control it through endoscopic thoracic sympathectomy, basically a surgical procedure to have your sympathetic nervous system disconnected. But that carries some unnecessary risk and is also illegal in most countries. We've all come here to work on our public speaking, and we do have prepared speeches. But I'd like to ask a question. How many people here have actually given a scripted public speech outside of this room? 1, 2, 3, 4. A few. Good. How many people here have given an impromptu public speech, such as an interview, such as answering a question in a business meeting?
We have a doing
The reality is we're going to be doing most of our speaking in an impromptu impromptu setting, and it can make you nervous. But I'd like to tell you there are 4 ways I believe that you can control those nerves and turn impromptu speeches, such as a table topic speech, into success. The first is to prepare like hell. Pardon my language, but that's the way it's always been told to me. Now, what does that mean? Impromptu speech. You think, well, you can't prepare for one. What you can do is take time to anticipate questions you might be asked or things you need to say. For example, in an interview, there are basically 4 key interview questions you're going to be asked in a job interview. Why are you here? What can you do for us? What makes you special? What kind of person are you? When I prepare for an interview, in order to be calm when I come into the interview, I write out bullet points to those 4 questions specific to the job that I'm interviewing for. I don't memorize a long answer. I don't memorize a script. Why do I do that? Because it sounds artificial. It doesn't build a good atmosphere. I actually do the same with table topics. When I see the theme of the day, I will usually think a little bit about, okay, here are the questions I think might get asked in table topics. And I will jot down a couple of bullet points. And then when that question comes up, I make really pretty eyes at the table topics master so they'll call on me. Usually works out pretty well. The next thing is to know your audience. What that means is understand what their needs and what their concerns are going to be before you start talking to them in an impromptu setting. For an interview, knowing more about the company. For a meeting, knowing about all the different people at the table and what their needs and objectives are going to be. Part of knowing your audience is to know that your audience actually wants you to succeed. When you're when you're being interviewed, your interviewer really wants you to be the right person for that job because they don't want to spend the rest of the day interviewing candidates. They want to go back to work. They are pulling for you. In table topics, it's the same thing. Sure, we want to be entertained, but we're all here for the same purpose. And that's how to learn. That's to learn to become better public speakers. We want you to succeed. We want you to get the experience. We want you to take those 2 minutes as your time and enjoy them. Now the next thing, the third thing that you can do to control your nerves and sweat a little bit less is what a friend of mine calls shut up and breathe. Last week we did a little exercise. I had everybody stand up if we have time. Why don't we go ahead and repeat it? Everybody just stand up real quick. Big breath in. Big breath out. What does that accomplish? Several things. First, it lowers your heart rate. Oh, you can sit down now. First, it lowers your heart rate when you breathe in slowly. More importantly, it gives you time. It gives you time to think about what you're going to say, to slow things down and collect your thoughts. Perhaps most importantly, it lets your audience digest what you have said. And this is part of knowing your audience. This way, they're able to pick up on what you're saying, and they can communicate and give you feedback that you can see in their nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is typically 90% of communication. That's why sweating can be so debilitating. The last thing you can do is to be interactive. Now, I've asked a few questions already. I'd like to ask another one very quickly. What is the single worst insult you can pay to a person?
Indifference.
To ignore them. That's the worst insult you can pay a person. Not swearing at them, that acknowledges them. Ignoring them says, you don't even exist to me. If you're interactive in your talks, if you ask questions, if you respond to questions, you are indicating that you value the other person's opinion, and that matters a lot to them. They will then become more engaged, and it will fire that interest in them for you to succeed. It's very normal to get extremely nervous when you're speaking. For me, it triggers a really bad automatic nervous system response. But even for impromptu speaking, such as table topics, by taking those 4 steps, knowing your audience, preparing like hell, shutting up and breathing, and being interactive, you can have more success and contain your nerves. Thank you.